So today's time for my June wrap up, and I didn't really wrap up very much over the course of the month, so I have a lot to wrap up this month. So let's start with, I actually read so much I had to make a list this month. Let's start with the manga. Yes, the manga. Let's start with that. So the first manga that I read and finished the Fruits Basket manga. I read from volumes 3 to volumes 23 this month, so I only read the first 2 volumes last month. I will probably talk about this a little bit more in my anime manga review of this that I'm going to do, because I finished the manga and finished the anime, and I thought I would combine the two with something a bit different. But basically, my overall opinion on this is that I really did enjoy it. It got a little slow towards the center, because they wanted you to know about all of the characters, even the side characters. Character Toru Honda, normally her character type would get on my nerves. She's kind of the clueless character who constantly, needs other people to be around and stuff. But the thing that I found very endearing was the fact that she is aware that she isn't smart, and despite that, she still tries her very best. And I think I just enjoyed it because it's nice to have a character who knows that they aren't as good as they could be, and they're still trying, and at the same time, people are willing to help her. The characters were all very endearing, I would say. Every book in the series got either a 4 or a 5 star. If you are looking for a shoujo or romantic kind of manga, I would definitely recommend this one, because it isn't focused on love and relationships all of the time. There is an entire story that has nothing to do with love that sort of encompasses the entire story and everything in it, and I really enjoyed it. The next 2 manga I read are the High School Debut series, the first 2 volumes in the 13-volume set. These are by Kazune Kawahara. Volume 1, 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I gave Volume 2, 3 out of 5 stars. It got really predictable in the second volume. I knew everything that was going to happen. Having said that, the ending was kind of cheesy and kind of liked it, so I'm going to give it another volume to determine whether or not I like it. I'm also not gonna lie, one of the reasons I've decided to give it another volume is because I like the cover of the 3rd volume. I'm going to give this another shot because this Volume 2 might just have been a bad volume that sets everything up. Then the final manga series is, I read volumes 1 through 8 of the Dean Angel series by Yukiru Sugisaki. I did that without looking at it. Yes! This follows a middle school student named Daisuke Niwa who happens to have within his DNA the genetic code for a master's thief named Dark, and it's all about stealing art and first love and being in middle school, which is kind of an interesting combination. You definitely have to be able to suspend your disbelief in this, because everything is just so over the top in this. You have people getting trapped in works of art and people becoming different people. I do find the series very, I'm going to say cute. It's a pseudo-dark series. It definitely, if this had been written for an older audience, it would have been a lot darker, but because it was written for a younger audience, it happens to just touch over the dark issues, so it's not light and fluffy, but at the same time, it's not hold your heart in terror, and I really do enjoy it. So those are all the manga I read. I suppose I should get to the actual books now. Well, that was fun. I apparently was talking to a camera that wasn't on, and then didn't realize when my camera closed, because waking up at 8:30 in the morning is cruel and unusual punishment. That is punishment. Alright, so a lot of the stuff I read, or half of the books I read, were continuations and series, so I can't talk much about them because of spoilers and stuff. A few books I read were the Grimm Sisters series, books 3 through 6. The Problem Child, Once Upon a Crime, Magic and Other Misdemeanors, and Tales from the Hood. I really enjoyed these books. I really enjoyed all of them. I have to say, probably of the three was probably my least favorite one. And I really enjoyed 4 and 5 a lot. 6 was okay. I have a feeling I'm really going to enjoy 7. I haven't read the last 3 books, which are The Ever After War, The Inside Story, and The Council of Mirrors. And the other book I actually read the companion guide book, A Very Grim Guide, and I probably shouldn't have done that because there are spoilers, and I've been spoiled. I gave the book 3 out of 5 stars, not because I was spoiled. I mean, I walked into that myself, because I didn't bother looking it up to see that that book was written in between book 8 and 9, so that was my own fault. But basically, there wasn't really anything new in it. Like, basically, it was like a little kid's guide to fairy tales. Then there's Requiem by Lauren Oliver, the final book in the Delirium series. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars as well. The series itself was a one-time read for me. I can't really talk too much about the book because one, I did a review on it and the series, but also because it's the 3rd book in a series and I don't want to really spoil it. I will say that the book is told in alternating perspectives between Lena and Hannah, and I did find that a problem I had was I enjoyed Hannah's story more than I enjoyed Lena's story, and I know a lot of people were annoyed with the ending, but I was fine with it. But honestly, the reason I was fine with this is because I really didn't care about the characters. Then we move on to the next book that I finished this month. Honestly, I don't know if it's actually the next book. This is kind of in random order based on how I wrote it on my list. That is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. Obviously, this month I was looking for short books to read, and Patrick Ness's A Monster Calls wins the award for being the first book to make me cry this year. I mean, what, it's June and I haven't cried for her book yet. It was a very powerful book and very intense while still taking it from a child's perspective. Basically, if you don't know about this book is about a kid named Connor who one day a monster comes to visit him, and then the monster tells him 3 stories, and then Connor then has to tell the monster a story. But Connor really doesn't want to do this. There's sort of a paranormal aspect to it, and I really enjoyed the story. And even though I knew what was going to happen, I still cried because the story is that well written and that powerful. We have Genius Squad, which is the 2nd book by Katherine Jenks in her Genius series. And I don't know what to say about this book. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I felt this book was unnecessarily long, just like I did the previous one. And then when you get to the last quarter of the book, it feels like everything in the first half of the book has been invalidated, and now you're dealing with something else, and I just find that exceedingly frustrating that happens, and I was annoyed by it. I was definitely annoyed by it. However, the very end, like the last chapter, kind of brought everything back that happened in the previous books. I was more okay with it than I was with Evil Genius, and it definitely was better. Honestly, I would say that the 2nd book was worth reading, but the 1st book wasn't. I'll probably get to the 3rd book at some point. I ended up taking it back to the library. It was actually the 3rd book was actually part of the Challenge Mode month books, and I ended up taking it back to the library because I knew I wasn't going to get to it because it's an interesting book, but it's just so slow. And you have to really be in the mood to tackle it. Unlike the next 2 books. The next book is Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Last Olympian. And there was a moment when one of the characters said, "I am the last Olympian," and I was like, this changes everything. Because you think it means one thing, and then that happened, I was like, Because yeah, getting the titles of books in books always makes me like that. 5 stars. I found it as good as the other books in the series, and I would highly recommend the Percy Jackson series to anyone who even is like slightly interested in Greek mythology or something awesome. I definitely really enjoyed the series, and was couldn't read for the rest of the day after finishing it because I wanted to read more Percy Jackson, and there was none. And the final book I have on my June TBR is City of Bones by Cassandra, not TBR, on my June wrap-up is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Mortal Instrument series. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I did a thoughts on it very recently, a couple days ago, where basically I said it was a good book. It's not as good as it was hyped to be, but it could just be that it's getting to the point of being overhyped, where no book could possibly reach that level of hype. The hype has reached critical mass. And City of Bones, in case you didn't know, because you haven't heard of it, which I find highly unusual if you hadn't, it's about a 15-year-old girl named Clary who one day she goes home and her apartment has been ransacked by a demon, and she is thrust into the world of shadow hunters, I want to call it the underworld, but it's not the underworld, the shadow world of werewolves and vampires and fairies and demons and angels, and she has to deal with all that. And because her mother has gone missing, and this shadow world is the reason why, basically. I think that is all for my wrap-up. It wasn't the best wrap-up ever, I will say that. But there was a lot, and I didn't want to make the video exceedingly long. We will adjourn this video. I will be back tomorrow with my July TBR, and hopefully not suffering the fatigue of waking up at 8 in the morning. I know I said 8:30 earlier, but it was 8. I remember because my first alarm was set to go off at 8. Because I had to go somewhere and then sit for 2.5 hours. Okay, night-night. I know it's only like 6 o'clock, but night-night.